Tribe, Book 2, Todd Mills Mystery. Author, R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher, Scrib Pub, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 19. The doorbell was ringing. Janice was slumped on the couch, sobbing. Todd was seated on the floor, leaning against a wall, his face buried in his hands, and the doorbell was ringing. Todd raised his head, wiped the tears from his own eyes. Glancing around, he saw the broken leg of the side table, the scattered magazines. Crap. When was he going to get a hold of his temper? Yes, the doorbell. There it was again. With the pain from his bruises cutting into his side, Todd pushed himself up from the floor. He paused, picked up one torn magazine that sprawled like a dead pigeon on the floor, laid it carefully on a chair. This was unbelievable, all of it. His voice hoarse, barely audible, he said, "Janice, But he didn't know what to say, and in any case it didn't make any difference. She didn't want to hear. Seated on the couch, she pulled the blanket up even higher, covering her face, and wouldn't even look at him. Who could blame her? As the doorbell rang again, Todd shuffled to the entry hall. Opening the front door, he found Rollins standing there, his compact body shivering, his head and leather jacket covered with snow. "Shit, it's really coming down," Rollins said, entering and stomping his boots. "Sorry it took me so long to get over here. We haven't had a storm like this in a few years." He glanced back to the kitchen. "Where is she?" "In the living room." "And how is she?" "Not good." Rollins studied Todd. "Man, you don't look so good either." "I'm not." He shook his head. "This is really a mess. Come on. There's a lot to tell you." Todd led Rollins down to the living room, where they found Janice still slumped on the couch. "Hi," she said, wiping her eyes and looking only at Rollins. "Thanks for coming." "Of course. But Janice, what the hell's going on?" began Rollins in his usual direct way. "Let me get this straight. That kid, that baby you've had for the past week, she's your granddaughter?" Janice nodded. "It's a tad more complicated. I'll tell you later," added Todd, wondering what Rollins would think. "About an hour ago, someone broke in, tied up Janice, knocked me out, and took her." "Oh, Jesus, a kidnapping!" Janice looked away, then she reached down to the coffee table and took the note. "I don't know what to say," began Janice. "Read this. We're not supposed to contact the police. I'm just afraid of what they'll do if... Rollins said firmly, "Relax. They won't know." "Janice," added Todd, placing his hand on Rollins' shoulder, "you've got to tell him everything." Obviously angry with him, she glared at Todd and shrugged. She motioned for Rollins to sit down, and then slowly, hesitantly, she began with the facts. She'd had a kid between her junior and senior years in college. She explained, her voice flat, almost defeated, and she'd not heard nor seen anything of the child until 3 years ago. Then he'd simply shown up at her law office one day. Eventually, she told Rollins everything, excluding one simple thing: the identity of the father. "I left a letter with his mother," she said. "I asked her to give it to Zeb if he ever inquired about me. Well, 3 years ago, he did inquire. He did get my letter, and after that, he decided to come up and meet me." "Just out of the blue?" asked Rollins. "Totally." Janice continued to explain that there had been nothing after that, not a word or a call or anything, until just a few days ago, when he'd phoned and told her they had to meet that night if possible. "So I met him in the parking lot of the Rainbow Food store last Monday. It's real cold, and he gets in my car and says hello, and in his arms, wrapped in his parka, is this kid, little Ripka." "You didn't know about her?" asked Rollins. "Are you kidding?" "Not at all." "What did he do then?" Todd ventured. She explained how Zeb had said he was worried about the child, how they were coming after him, how he was worried about his own safety. Rollins pressed. "Who? Who's this they?" "I don't know." Janice shook her head. "It just all happened so quickly. He was in my car, then he was pushing the kid into my arms, and then he was jumping out. It all happened about that quickly. But, well, when he was here the first time, He told me that his parents were divorced. Apparently, when he was 10 or 11, his mother took him and ran away from his father. Something about his dad being in some religious cult. Then, when he was here the first time, he told me he was going back to live with his dad for a while. So maybe he stayed for a few years and then he had to run away, too? That's what I've been thinking, added Janice. Maybe there was no way to get away from them but to run. And he took his daughter just like his mom took him. And now they're after him. It's either that or drugs, because I know he got into some trouble in high school for smoking pot. Todd gently asked, Did he say anything about what he was going to do? Where he was going? No, not really. You don't have any way of getting in touch with him? No, he didn't say a thing about his plans. She stopped, tripped on something in her memory. Wait a minute. He said something about a job interview, that he just had one. Here in town? Interjected Todd. I think so. Good. Then it sounds as if he wasn't planning on going far. He probably wanted to be close to the kid. Did he say where he interviewed? Asked Rollins. Oh, crap. What did he say? At a factory, a business downtown, an insurance agency, anything like that? Suggested Todd. She looked at him. A hospital, that's what he said. Her eyes opened wide. A hospital in Edina. Todd smiled slightly. There's only one hospital out there, right? As far as I know. Rollins started to get up. Let's just hope he was offered the job and that he, in fact, took it. What? You're not going to go out there, are you? Demanded Janice. Of course, replied Rollins. Todd said, How else are we going to find him? But the note, the letter. We're not supposed to. Don't worry, interjected Todd, looking squarely at her. I'm going to make sure nothing happens to that baby. We're not going to do anything stupid, added Rollins. You'll see. We'll just try to find him, and then you can ask him some questions. What? She protested. You're not expecting me to go out there, too, are you? Rollins glanced at Todd, then back at Janice. Well, it would be helpful. You could identify him at least. No! Janice was vigorously shaking her head. I'm not going. I've got to stay here by the phone. Todd knew there would be no changing her mind, no way to talk her into going out to the hospital, at least not tonight. Yet neither he nor Rollins had any idea what this Zeb looked like. His voice full of trepidation, Todd asked, You don't have a picture of him, do you? She nodded, wiped her nose, shed the blanket from her shoulders, and got up. After crossing the room, Janice took a colored picture of a young man from her wallet. It was taken a few years ago, she explained. He gave it to me when he first came up here, when we first met. He's older now, more mature looking, and his hair is short. But, Todd crossed to her, pulled the photo from her hands. It looked like a high school picture, a handsome boy poised in front of a blue background, long brown hair, nice smile. Todd searched the face, tried to see a hint of his own reflection. Rollins came up behind Todd, studied the picture, and volunteered. Wow, cute kid. Yeah, well, don't get any ideals. You're much too old for him, snapped Todd, as he placed the photo in his shirt pocket. Come on, let's go. Call me, implored Janice. Tell me if you find him. Todd stared at her, wondered how deeply Janice and he were actually connected. Then he went over and kissed her on the cheek. I'm sorry, he said. She shrugged, pulled back a bit, and said, You scared me. Yeah, well, I'm an ass. Just let me know as soon as you find out anything. As they headed for the door, Rollins said, If anyone calls, take notes. Write down exactly what they said when they called. Everything. Do you have a call waiting? No. Then if any friends phone, just tell them you can't talk. And don't make any calls either. You want to make sure to keep the line open. Don't worry, I won't tie up the phone, and I'm sure as hell not going anywhere either, stated Janice. Just be careful. Be nice to Zeb, too, in spite of whatever he's done. He's a good kid. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.